Welcome to Catholic Messenger Conversations. Bishops Thomas Zinkula and I, Barbara Arlen Fye, are having a conversation today about how to prepare to vote in the fast approachly coming presidential election on November 3rd. Does that sound like a good topic, Bishop?
It's relevant.
Okay.
That's for sure. Current.
Did you get a chance to listen in on the presidential debate last night?
No, I was busy working on some things, so I just read about it this morning.
I listened in on parts of it, and it was really, really divisive and showed exactly how polarized our country continues to be. I'm just wondering, do you have any specific ideas or actions that we could take as individuals and as a community of faith to help thaw that polarization?
So there's a softball question because the U.S. bishops have this program that we've been pushing for a while now. This calendar year, I'm not sure when this started, but it's called Civilize It, speaking to this exact concern that you have. And I guess, the debate with Senator Ernst and Teresa
Greenfield, yeah.
Greenfield. That was, I didn't hear that one. Sounds like that was pretty, I don't know what the word to say, unprofessional as well in terms of throwing things around. So it's not just the presidential, it's just a conversation about politics in our country right now. So with Civilize It, it's like, the question is, how can we best enter the political discussion? And so it's about encounter. Pope Francis talks about encounter a lot, having an encounter with those we disagree with in a civil way. So just to kind of get to the heart of it, then there's three elements to the Civilize It campaign. One is civility, what we're referring to there is to recognize others' human dignity and treat others with respect. So just that very civil thing, treating each other with dignity and respect. Clarity, that doesn't mean you just, you're a wimp about it and okay, well, you have your opinion, I have mine. But to stand up for our convictions, but also to seek to understand the convictions of others.
Right.
And when we're putting out our convictions, to root our viewpoints in the gospel and a well-formed conscience. So that's really critical if we're Catholic Christians. And then the third thing is compassion. So to presume the other person's best intentions and to listen with empathy, to strive to understand. So rather than to kind of try to understand their, maybe even be able to, like Thomas Aquinas talks about being able to present the other person's argument even better than they can themselves, and then you kind of tear it down, whatever. Yeah. But to really take to heart what they're saying and understand what they're saying, and it doesn't mean you're agreeing with it, but you're really listening to their argument with empathy and having really good intentions.
We've been talking about this forever, but people aren't doing it. They're not practicing civility.
No, that's true.
None of us are. It's like we're just quick-tempered about it. I don't know. Maybe we need psychologists to help us examine our heads. It can become
a group thing. I mean, we can just get sucked into it, and it becomes, just the way we operate. We're bringing out the worst in each other rather than the best.
Right. So we have to maybe practice these. I wonder if we can have practice conversations or something. Schedule them in small group sessions or something, maybe. Who knows? Okay, well, at least we have that document. We can maybe we need to keep putting that in the newspaper and out in social media so people are reminded of it.
I think, right.
On a regular basis.
Yeah, I think that would help.
Okay. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenships is being used by Catholics of different political persuasions to favor their positions. Can you kind of just generalize what this document really says for those of us who are trying to rise above these biases?
Yeah, I mean, that's not the point of the document at all. It's not telling people how to vote at all. It's like it says that that the title is Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship. So it encourages people to do that, and to then actually vote, and that it's like the bishops say that's a moral obligation. I mean, it's a grave duty that we have as if we call ourselves Christian. We need to be engaged in the political realm as well as other areas of society. So there's like two main parts to the document. The first is Forming Consciences for Faithful Citizenship, the U.S. Bishop's reflection on Catholic teaching and political life. So basically it's saying, why does the church teach about issues affecting public policy? Who in the church should participate in political life? How does the church help the Catholic faithful to speak about political and social questions? What does the church say about Catholic social teaching in the public square? So then it presents 4 principles of Catholic social teaching. So it's just all general stuff about forming our consciences and as Catholics in the political arena. So it's not saying anything about who you should vote for or whatever. And then there's part 2 that is about applying Catholic teaching to major issues, a summary of policy positions of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. So it's kind of saying, so form your consciences and everything, and here's why, and here's how to do that. But then here's where we're at on the issues. So, we're not in the same place with either party totally on these issues. So, some on both sides. There's things we agree with the positions they're taking, and on others we don't. So it lays them out. Here's some real key areas like human life and promoting peace, marriage and family life, religious freedom, preferential option for the poor and economic justice, healthcare, migration, on and on, care for our common home. So it just kind of here's forming our consciences from a Catholic perspective. Here's how we feel about. Here's some important issues for us as Catholics, and here's how we stand on those different issues.
And we should tell people they can find that document on the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops website, the www.usccb.org.
Right, and it's on our website as well.
Yeah, and I think it's on Iowa Catholic Conference website.
Catholic Conference and the Diocese of Davenport.
Diocese of Davenport website, too.
Yeah, you can go
so we
right
should
there.
do that instead.
Yeah.
So instead, folks, go to www.
Because we have other things there, too, that like the Iowa Catholic Conference statement is there.
Right.
And other things that we...
So that's www.davenportdiocese.org, right?
I don't know, sounds right.
That sounds pretty good to me. Okay, but Bishop, we hear and read the terms non-negotiable and preeminent regarding the abortion issue with greater frequency every presidential election year. How should we apply those terms in forming our consciences, which is an important part of preparing to vote?
Yeah, so it comes down to, right. So it's fine, okay, form your consciences and here are the issues and, and everything. And so, to get more specific about that, but without telling people exactly how to vote, I paragraphs 34 to 37 sort of, it's very nuanced, and but it kind of lays it out, and I'll just go through those quickly. So 34, so there's this really this strong kind of principle in the church that with regard to intrinsic evils, intrinsic evil acts, that we can't vote for a candidate who favors a policy promoting an intrinsically evil act. That's a really strong kind of position that we take. So, and that gives an example of them: abortion, of course, euthanasia, assisted suicide, deliberately subjecting workers or the poor to subhuman living conditions, redefining marriage in ways that violate its essential meaning, or racist behavior. So it's, abortion, but there's other things in there too, intrinsically evil and racist behavior. Interesting. I'd forgotten about that until I took a look at this more recently, given, kind of what's going on right now. And so, you can't vote for somebody who's favors a policy promoting an intrinsically evil act if your intent is to support that position. All right?
Yes.
So that's,
Yeah.
you know. And so then if you did, you'd be guilty of a formal cooperation in grave evil. But at the same time, it says in paragraph 34, a voter should not use a candidate's opposition to an intrinsic evil to justify indifference or inattentiveness to other important moral issues involving human life and dignity. So it's very nuanced.
Yeah.
You can't vote for somebody with the intent of supporting their position on an intrinsically evil act, but that doesn't mean you ignore everything else. So that you can't just, we're not just one issue voters. It says that in this document. So then paragraph 35, it says, there may be times when a Catholic who rejects a candidate's unacceptable position, even on policies promoting an intrinsically evil act, may reasonably decide to vote for that candidate for other morally grave reasons. So truly grave moral reasons. So it can be kind of complicated, and it can be hard to sort that out. What are my intentions? And what are the candidates' positions on these things, and looking at many things. And then paragraph 36. So it says, you might want to, because there's no all the candidates hold a position that promotes an intrinsically evil act. There's an extraordinary step of not voting for any candidate at all. So that should be very unusual, I think. But it could be, last election there were people that took that position. They couldn't vote for either candidate. And then finally, paragraph 37. Again, it says all issues do not carry the same moral weight. The moral obligation to oppose policies promoting intrinsic evil acts has a special claim in our consciences and our actions. So again, it hits that really hard. We have to take that really seriously. But then it says, for grave reasons, you might want to consider the candidate's commitments, character, integrity, and ability to influence a given issue. So where does that leave you? Probably confused. I don't know what to do, but
I think people are craving for someone to say, here's what you need to do. Neither of the Democrat or Republican parties has, the perfect platform. And I think people are like, oh, how do I choose?
I know.
And they want black and white. And
And when somebody tell them, okay, bishop or pastor, tell me who to vote for. That's just not where we're at.
Right.
Maybe back in the day, when father and sister were the most highly educated, and of some immigrant community, and pray and obey, and just tell us what to do, Father, and treating the laity as children. In those days, maybe that's what people were looking for. It was acceptable, and people were looking for that. But it's just not where it's at now. It's not my role to tell people who to vote for. People have their own consciences.
Bishop, what do you do, though? There are priests and bishops out there online, on social media, who are telling Catholics how to vote.
And, either way, vote this way or that way.
Right.
I think it's wrong. I think it's not following the teachings of the church. Even apart from the whole thing with the IRS regulation in terms of being a nonprofit corporation, everything, that doesn't. That's not. Even if that wasn't the case, they're trying to get rid of that IRS regulation. Some people are anyway. Even if that wasn't a rule, I still think we should have this same position on things, that we don't get involved in partisan politics. Yeah, we speak to the issues, and some people complain about that even. Churches stay out of that kind of stuff. No, we need to be involved in the political world, but speaking to the issues, and people can differ as to how they view things and who they vote for.
So how should we form our consciences? Can you give some ideas of the steps we take to do that?
But just one last thing about this.
Okay.
Just think about it. So a pastor or bishop, pastor in a parish says vote for this person and that and this party. Right away you've alienated maybe about half the people.
Right.
And you're supposed to provide pastoral care to them. That's going to be hard because they're,
definitely.
Just in terms of the emotion involved and everything. Yeah, no, what I say, I actually preached on this last weekend, so I have this fresh in my mind in terms of, forming our consciences. First of all, identifying the relevant issues. This document helps to do that. And the Iowa Catholic Conference document does as well. And what is the church's teaching on these particular issues? So here's the issues. What's the church teach on them? And look to Scripture as well. Start there probably. That's where our teachings come from.
Mm-hmm.
The Catechism of the Catholic Church, Catholic social teachings. Yet these documents, and so it's work. We need to put some effort into it. And the overriding theme you're going to find is the common good and kind of the looking out for people who are most vulnerable and defenseless. And that's what you're going to find in there. And so in our conscience isn't simply what I think about something or how I feel about it. It has to be well formed.
Right.
It's really important. If we're going to make, decisions, they need to be based on a well-formed conscience. We need to know and have the mind of Christ and His body, the church. So that's a huge thing. And then another thing is, so that's looking at things from the church perspective and our doctrines and teachings, but then to research the position of the candidates. Evaluate their policy positions, evaluate the party platforms, and the candidates' promises and actions in light of the gospel and the moral and social teachings of the church. So, here's what the church is saying and teaching, and these are the important issues. Where are the candidates at on these issues?
Right.
To really do some work on that. And then civilize it, talk to people about it. We should be able to have a conversation and hear each other and influence each other, and then to pray about it. How many of us pray before we vote and on the candidates and the issues, and reflect and seek the will of God, and then actually vote.
Right. I'm wondering, there are Catholics who would say, without, if you support life, you have to begin at the beginning. And that if a child is aborted, that there is no other life. So that's creating an absolute. And yet the bishops say that we support life from womb to tomb. But they're saying, some Catholics are saying that if you don't support life from the very beginning, nothing else matters because there isn't life.
Right. So that's what we were talking about that in terms of intrinsic evil, and those four paragraphs that I kind of highlighted. It talks about that, intrinsic evils, and it gives those examples of abortion and euthanasia and a couple other things. So it's not just one thing. That is a very important thing, for sure. And we start there, but it doesn't make it kind of complicates it then by saying, but there are these other things too you need to take into consideration. We're not one issue voters. We can't be. I don't know. It's such a delicate area because people will write you off if you.
Right.
Exactly. If you talk this way, even though it's in the bishop's document, it's come to the teachings of the church.
Right.
But, Pope Francis is making a big deal about the environment, and you can push it a little further, and if we don't take care of the environment and there's no we can't support life on Earth anymore, then there's no life at all.
Right.
So So you said they're all interrelated, these things, and it's complicated, and I think we need to kind of step back and look at the big picture sometimes.
Because the Pope talks about our interconnectedness. I mean, even the idea of immigrants and families being separated, when the church teaches that the family is a very, is a domestic church.
Right.
And so I'm just wondering, but I can see, people are conflicted about what they should do. So you're just saying we really need to reflect on Scripture,
The teachings,
of the church,
and
pray,
yes, all those things.
and examine where the candidates stand on a variety of issues, not just one specific issue or two specific issues or that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's people are looking for black and white. There's a lot of gray in the world, and so I think we need to we have to. It's a struggle,
Right.
and good things can come out of struggles. But if we're not struggling in as we consider the issues and the candidates and who we're going to vote for, probably we're not looking at it carefully enough, because there needs to be some struggle there. Because nobody's no candidate's the perfect candidate.
And that's never been the case, has it? I mean, that's always been the case. There's never been that ideal party that meets what the Catholic Church teaches
Right.
on life.
Yeah, that's.
What I'm wondering is, how much time do you spend responding to Catholics contacting you with their concerns about voting? Do you get a lot of mail and email and letters? And
I've been
phone
getting
calls?
more and more. I don't know how many I would say. Might get a half a dozen, a week.
Is there a central theme to what they're saying?
No, it's all over all the place. People want me to speak out and in favor of this candidate or that candidate, like both sides,
Right.
and or this party, that party, and they want me to do that, and they sometimes they're not really respectful in their language as to how they present that too, so it's, and try to, so it's just kind of interesting. But sometimes, often they are respectful. They just really feel really strongly about this. I can't do that. I can't say, it's just not, I with integrity in my role as bishop, I can't do that, tell people who to vote for. It's your conscience.
Right.
Form your conscience. Pray about it. You've got to make that decision. I don't have the right to tell somebody who to vote for.
So do you send those people the Civilize It document?
No.
You should probably do that.
Yeah, no. I almost always respond and just sort of present what I'm thinking about.
So they ask you how they should vote? Do you have people saying, Bishop, I just can't figure out how I should vote.
No.
I'm just wondering if you've got some ideas. Do you get that kind of question or not?
I haven't gotten that yet this year.
Wow.
No, it's more people they're sure about
About
their
position,
their position.
About what they need to do.
Right. So I haven't gotten anybody that's indecisive.
And everyone's trying to save souls, aren't they? They think that this is a case of...
they feel, a lot of passion. My approach to those kinds of things is, when somebody's way over here on an issue and somebody else is way over there and totally polar opposites, and they can't talk to each other and without yelling and demonizing each other and all that. Probably if you work at it and you try to get underneath where they're coming from,
right,
on their position, if you go deep enough, you can find some common ground. Like, I agree with you on this particular stance, this value, this whatever
right,
belief, but then maybe you don't agree where they take that. You agree on the deeper thing, but then they go off in this direction, you go off in another direction. But at least you can, at least you can have something that you can agree on, and this person isn't like this necessarily a terrible person.
right.
They're passionate because there's this value that they take very seriously, and you do too. but you kind of separate it in terms of where you go with it.
And there are some groups, I think, in the diocese that are working towards that, like have you heard of that Better Angels out of Clinton, I think, the Clinton Franciscan Peace Center is trying to get the Reds and the Blues together to talk about, to find common ground. Sometimes it's a very small thing. Sometimes it's not even the core of an issue, but it may be something within that issue.
Yeah.
Some little part of it.
Right. I mean, sometimes, right. I've heard about, I don't know a whole lot about that.
Right.
That endeavor.
So maybe we need more of those kind of groups around to help us.
Right.
Because it's not like you can just go up to someone on the street who maybe is totally opposite of your viewpoint and say, hey, let's have a cup of coffee and a conversation over this.
Yeah, and both sides need to be open to it. And that's not always
Is that where it begins? It's just, one-on-one, do you think? Or do you think it's parishes should try and offer some kind of an opportunity, although this is probably a tough time with COVID, but for people to get together in groups and just talk?
Probably both and.
Yeah.
Some people would be more receptive to a one-on-one thing, a family member or friend, and others might be more open to a group kind of a thing. It's kind of depending on who they are and where they're at with things. But
sometimes it's tougher in families. I mean, it can create almost like a little civil war in the family.
Yeah, there's a lot of families unfortunately can't talk about politics. It's really unfortunate.
So, any parting words of wisdom for us as we approach this election, which is what, a little more than a month away?
Yeah, no, I don't know. In my homily, I was kind of saying this last week, and I was suggesting that people consider how many hours that we spend on preparing our income taxes.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe not as much if we have a tax preparer, but I have someone who helps with my tax, and it's a lot of work pulling things together. It's like somebody that, there's somebody that cleans my house too, thank God. But I do a lot of work before to just kind of get ready for that. So think about how much time.
Defeats the purpose.
Yeah, think about how much time that you spend preparing your income taxes, and think about investing at least that amount of time preparing to vote. By studying the issues, the candidates, and church teaching, and again, it's like the bishops say. Responsible citizenship is a virtue, and participation in political life is a moral obligation. So it's a grave responsibility that we have to vote with an informed conscience,
right.
And that duty to vote is rooted in our baptismal commitment to follow Jesus and bear witness to our faith in everything we do, including in voting. So
right.
it's a serious thing to vote. It's really, really important for us as Catholics, and it's rooted in our faith, in our baptism.
Right. I appreciate that. Thank you for helping to shed more light on this issue and on how we should approach this election, and maybe next month we can talk a little bit about that as a recap and some other interesting topics.
That would be swell, Barb.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Bishop.
Sure.
For now, that's it for this edition of Catholic Messenger Conversations. Join us next time.